Hey, alright, so one thing I did want you to make note of, especially if you're an iPhone user, is that this that you're seeing right here, and let me turn off the AC while I'm recording, but so you can hear me better. If you're an iPhone user who thinks that the video quality on Android sucks, I want you to look at this video, okay? This is a Sony Xperia 1.5, so it's a few years, it's outdated at this point, but it's recording at 4K at 60, frames per second as I record this. And no, I'm not in my bathroom. Again, that is my front lawn and carport behind me. Those are not shower curtains, they're privacy curtains that just happen to be hung, on with those circlet things that you see. Anyways, so going on, one thing that I wanted to talk about is to debunk ultimately the bullshit that has been spread about why manufacturers of smartphones haven't included, microSD in one excuse that was offered. So there's a consortium of people that come out of the world of manufacturing devices, like, for example, cameras that, it would make sense for there to be a micro SD card slot in it, and they've all rallied around this technology and pushed for it ultimately to be sped up and towards modern speeds. And if you look in the market, it's very difficult to find a micro SD card that is of the original speed of micro SD as it was back in the day, at the very start of this technology when it was brand new. That's gone. Those days are gone. I mean, microSD Express is now around, and prices aren't really all that much different than actual regular microSD, which has also been raised to the point, of very, very fast. You know, uh, uh, very, very fast. And, so the, the truth of the matter is that I did find that I liked the full 4K, but I don't know why. There seems to be a difference between 4K versus 4K at FPS, where 4K at FPS isn't as bright. But anyways, this is the full quality of it, so it's a lot more crystal clear. I mean, look at my beard and everything. You can see much more exacting detail, and that's because of SMS. And the SMS messaging was limited to a very small video size. They could only transfer like 1 megabyte. Like it just wasn't sufficient to support any of that. But anyways, so micro SD and the excuse that's being offered by smartphone manufacturers, the SD Association came together to pressure industries that were producing it, basically, to make and manufacture cards that were able to support better speeds. And at this point, the top speed of micro SD's fastest offerings versus, and these are both flash memory versus internal flash memory, are so negligible as to be practically imperceptible to human perception. Like it's practically non-existent. It's practically just as fast. And so, for them to offer this excuse that micro SD is slow is bullshit. I mean, yeah, you have to do your homework. There's micro SD. Not every micro SD card was created equal, but it's very, very difficult to stumble upon one that isn't, of the of pretty decent speeds. And if all you really need to know is that the more modern ones are micro SD Express. Like my old SD cards are probably not going to function in this new Nintendo Switch 2 that I got and that I've plugged in, to my outlet. I do appreciate that it's micro SD because it means a bunch of different things can put, not micro USB. It's USB-C at the bottom, so a bunch of other devices can be easily plugged into it. But it supports MicroSD Express, so I'm gonna have to get another card to upgrade my Nintendo Switch's internal storage my Nintendo Switch 2's internal storage pretty quickly. But you know, the latest speeds are crazy, crazy fast. They can support modern gaming. They can support 4K video play, and at 60 FPS playback, and probably even 80K FPS playback. They're pretty much usable across the board no matter what, in terms of speed. They can support the most demanding of applications that you can throw at them at this point. And so this idea that they've offered that microSD is not fast enough, it's bullshit. The real reason they're not offering it is because they want to sell you either a cloud storage or a higher internalized NAND storage. They want to upcharge you for that. That's the real reason why they're doing it. It's all about the moolah, the money.